the Jackets lose in overtime again, this time in Montreal to the Canadiens. Final score of 4-3. So unfortunately, David Savard injured long term for Montreal, doesn't get to draw in against Columbus. But Dmitry Voronkov makes his NHL debut for the Blue Jackets. He's drawing in for Kent Johnson, which I found interesting. Pascal Vincent did clarify that this wasn't a move made as a punishment for Kent Johnson, and that there is a plan in place for him, and they've discussed that on both ends. Kent Johnson was also a healthy scratch on game one, and Pascal Vincent citing not necessarily issues with how Kent Johnson was playing or his work ethic, just that they want him to more match the pace that the Jackets are desiring. So definitely a situation to monitor as the season progresses, just how often Kent Johnson is the one getting pulled as one of the forwards in the press box. But Voronkov drawing in does create a fourth line of Dmitry Voronkov, who's a huge rookie from Russia, Sean Corrali, and Matthew Olivier. Definitely a very tough fourth line. You're probably not going to out-muscle them quite often as far as throwing your body around. And the first thing Dmitry Voronkov did on the ice was register a hit, and he would look for more throughout the game, although I think that hit at the very beginning was the only official hit that he registered. The game starts, though. Montreal getting some zone time. Jackets with a couple of chances off the rush, and Roslovic would finish one early in the game off of some nice passing between Gaudreau and Morensky. Gaudreau with a really nice pass to Jack Roslovic for him to finish that one off. Then Dmitry Voronkov getting involved physically again. He boarded Arbor Xhekaj. That's definitely going to garner a response. They get into a fight, and they both get 5 minutes for fighting and 2 for coincidental minors. Voronkov for boarding, obviously, but Arbor Xhekaj getting 2 as well for roughing. And then a little while later, Cole Sillinger boarding Newhook, but Pearson getting called for roughing shortly after, so that creates a 4-on-4. I thought the Jackets were a little lucky to not have to go on the penalty kill in that either of those sequences involving boarding, and definitely the Montreal fans letting the refs know that they weren't necessarily happy with Montreal not getting any power plays off of that. Elvis was solid early, and I think he was solid throughout the entire game as well. Canadiens getting some solid chances. Montreal getting a power play eventually that is killed off, and Columbus would get one back, and it would be Emil Bemstrom getting another one-timer goal on the power play, and that puts the Jackets up 2-0. Dmitry Voronkov in front of the net, if he's going to be in there on the second unit, I think that's a really cool idea. Get the biggest guy you have, put him in front of the goalie on the power play, and hope somebody like Emil Bemstrom can get a shot around the goalie. That's a good idea there, in my opinion. That score holds to the end of the first period. Old habits would die hard for Columbus early in the second, though, unfortunately. Just a really bad turnover by Boone Jenner leads to Suzuki getting a shot past Elvis, cutting the lead for the Blue Jackets in half. Josh Anderson denied on a breakaway and on the follow-up chance. Montreal buzzing early in the second, but the Jackets would weather the storm, kill a couple of penalties in their own right, and they eventually got another power play where Emil Bemstrom would score another power play goal. This one a little bit more at the net front. On a nice pass from Jack Roslovic. Dmitry Voronkov getting his first NHL point as well as a secondary assist on that goal. Now it's 3-1. Columbus really looking to go to the second intermission up by 2. But Montreal got a power play on an interference on Damon Severson. A little bit earlier, it was clear that Fantilli did have his stick break off of what looked like a slash. But whatever. Again, earlier in the game, Jackets probably lucky to not be in the penalty kill earlier. This time they might get a little unlucky in being on the penalty kill in this scenario. Have to deal with the calls as they come. But it would be Matheson burying a shot with 16 seconds left in the second. And that's how the second period would end, with the score at 3-2. In the third period, it gets started, and Canadiens started to tilt the ice in their favor a little bit. The Jackets do get a power play, but Fantilli would interfere at the tail end of it, transitioning that into a Montreal power play. And on the kill for Columbus, Monahan would deflect a Caufield shot into the net to tie it at 3 a little less than 8 minutes into the third. And at this point, the wheels are starting to fall off the train a little bit. Elvis having to stop a couple of prime chances from Slafkovsky and Monahan to keep it tied. Jackets really just trying to hope to cling onto the game and get it to overtime, and they do, thanks in large part to Elvis Merzlikins having a really solid outing. They even get a power play to boot at the tail end of the third. Fantilli was high-sticked with about a minute left to go, meaning it was 4-on-3 for about the first minute of overtime. Jackets getting some pretty good chances, just nobody really being quite able to capitalize on some really good rebound opportunities. Matheson from Montreal did have some really good defense on a dangerous Johnny Gaudreau chance. He denied multiple attempts from Gaudreau on that 4-on-3. Then once things returned to 3-on-3, though, it was all Montreal in the overtime period, and it ended with Caufield turning Fantilli around. Absolutely, definitely a rookie moment there for Adam Fantilli, getting kind of worked out of his skates a little bit by Cole Caufield, and then firing on a Roslovic screen shot past Merzlikins, ending the game at 4-3. Montembeault for Montreal on the other end of the ice and net. Really good down the stretch for the Canadiens, and good, credit to Montreal for keeping on pressing, forcing the issue, going down 3-1. That can be a little deflating, especially when on the power play and the way the Columbus got that 3-1 lead. But Montreal, they kept pushing the issue. They were forcing Columbus into some mistakes. Elvis having to be sharp a couple times. Seemed like his own defender was almost putting it in the net. Provorov in that overtime almost put it right between Elvis's legs. Elvis having to make a couple of really heads-up stops. And this is the second straight blown lead, resulting in an overtime loss for the Blue Jackets. Definitely not a good way to lose out on some overtime points and maybe want to settle those games in regulation. And I know they're working with Kent Johnson, and maybe they haven't seen what they wanted to see from him in the early season, but he definitely could have been pretty useful in 3-on-3 play the last couple of games. Patrick Laine being out certainly doesn't help either, but you can't control injuries. Kent Johnson, they could put him in the lineup if they so desire. Dmitry Voronkov, I know they want to see how he performs, and I think he did. He held his own fairly well in his NHL debut, but you don't have to call him up quite this early. There is a clause in his contract that if he's not up at the NHL club by January 1st, he can go back to Russia, but that's still a couple months out. Kent Johnson can join the lineup. I guess they really, really want to focus on some things with him in practice and get him some. Maybe they wanted to see something about how they're playing up in the press box. Again, I'm not going to absolutely hit the panic button yet, but if we're getting into, closer to midway or a quarter of the way through this season, and Kent Johnson is still kind of consistently getting these healthy scratches here and there, it might start to raise some questions as to what Kent Johnson, what they're doing with him at this point. But again, it's still very early in the season. No reason to start yelling and screaming my head off about that quite yet. And a lot has and a lot will be made about Johnny Hockey not having any goals, but he did make a great assist on that first goal in this one. I do think he's still generating chances for himself and others. That first one is going to come, but again, with Johnny Hockey and the contract he's signed to, you would like to see him bury a couple of those chances, even if they are being well defended and they're tough. They're paying Johnny Hockey the money to make those tough shots and to work around the odds that are going to be thrown against you when you are one of the high-profile player on this team. Defenses are going to key on you, and they're going to try to make sure that you don't put some of those chances in the net. And the team in general is still going to have to learn how to put away some games. You can't take third period leads for granted. When you get those, you definitely got to earn yourself some points. And they technically have. I know this positive spin you could put on this is that, well, they do have a 4-game point streak, but the last two results against Anaheim and this one against Montreal, they are disappointing. I'm pretty sure that's my takeaway from this, is that you had leads in the third period. You definitely want to turn those into at least you want to get at least one of them to a win. I understand one of them might get away from you in overtime, but to have both back to back, kind of as a similar blueprint, definitely leaves a sour taste in the mouth. Especially considering that Elvis is playing light. He's been playing lights out for most of the season. He had a bit of a rough showing against the Wild, but besides that, the new goaltending coach and this defensive system definitely seem to be helping Elvis out a little bit. His play has definitely improved from what we saw from him last season. But yeah, hopefully when the Jackets are back in action on Saturday, hopefully if they do have a lead in the third period, I hope they do have one. Hopefully they can figure out whatever it is they have to do to put it away. And that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did make it this far into it, make sure to leave a like and a subscribe if you enjoyed the video and you would like to see more like it. Let me know what you thought about this game and how the Blue Jackets might fare in the future down in the comments below. Once again, thank you for watching. I will see you at the next one.